Chapter 37 is one morphological irregularity and an assortment of syntax. So, first, the verb to go, ao. This is an irregular verb. It looks a little weird, but it's actually more regular in some ways than you might first think. If you think of this verb as e, which is simultaneously the entire stem and the thematic vowel, and O as your first person singular ending, the whole thing kind of works. You be the judge. Ao, is, eat. Ebom, ebos, ebat. So your imperfect, the imperfect is just your I, your thematic vowel, plus your bomb ending. Kinda like an imperfect. Similarly, you get a sort of second conjugation future here, bo, bis, bit. You're perfect. It's like one of those without a V in it. Eat, easty, eat. Notice eat as opposed to eat. This extra I. Not sure I can fully explain what's going on there. But it doesn't look like anything else. It looks like the perfect of a very truncated verb, ao. You can do similar things if you remember sort of the subjunctive. The present subjunctive is formed by doing an E-A vowel switch, so the E vowels become A vowels, the A vowels become E vowels. Here you get aam, eas, eat. You got an A showing up, kind of what you'd expect. The infinitive of ao is ire, I-R-E, just the infinitive ending. And here you get the subjunctive imperfect, subjunctive perfect formed more or less. The subjunctive perfect is a little weird, look at that. But the subjunctive imperfect is formed by taking that infinitive and adding an M, which is exactly what you expect. The subjunctive pluperfect is by taking the isse, right? Isse is the pluperfect. Isse, isem, so isem, isset, isem, isses, isset. So it's the pluperfect infinitive, just the ending, with the MST, the first, second person, the personal ending slapped on. I'm kind of just describing this chart to you. The perfect ending, which of course is identical to the future perfect, is just I with arrow attached to it. I guess that's what's going on. Arrow, eris, erit, which is what you expect for the future perfect. So no, it's exactly. You can think of this verb as just basically being just a thematic vowel with your personal endings. What would it be? That more or less gets you through. So read through those, think about how this would usually be formed, sort of form it in your head with like something like ago, and then take a look at how ao works. Note the imperative, e, just the letter I. I don't know how common that is, but it sure is striking when it shows up. Then there's a few additional functions of cases. These have sort of probably come up along the way, but let's talk through them. So the place constructions, the usual, there in Proto-Indo-European, there were 8 cases. 3 of them have been swallowed up by the ablative of separation, which is just the ablative. The locative and the instrumental have all collapsed into ablative. And here we see the ablative being used for the place from which is your ablative of separation, and for the ablative of the locative ablative. Okay, so those are sort of our first pass. So the ablative is being used twice, once corresponding to the proper locative, and once corresponding to the ablative. That is the ablative of separation from the word ob, latus, being carried away from. Accusative can be used for places with implied direction, the place to which he will go into that city, in Elam Urbem Ibit, so he will go into. There's a sort of directionality, a sort of momentum towards, a towardsness. The accusative does that work. And then they introduced what do they call these special constructions. And this, here we see that a few words not determined by like what declension they are, but rather determined by their meaning. So words for cities and states and islands and like larger divisions of place. So provinces sometimes. These will use a distinctive locative form as distinct from the ablative. So it's a place where a distinct locative form has been preserved. And somewhat unfortunately, it looks identical to the genitive. This is not a genitive. It looks identical to the genitive, but it is a old locative form being preserved that happens to be identical with the genitive. And then you have some additional uses. There's nothing unusual with that. That's the normal use of the ablative and the accusative. I'm not sure why. There's this little sort of strange arrangement of material here. Lastly, you got the two-time constructions. There's an ablative of time, a temporal ablative, which is the time at which. So think of that as the locative use of the ablative applied to time. So where is it happening? But in time. So when's it happening? So you have on the same day, just eodem dia, on the same day. So that's telling you when it's happening, as opposed to the accusative of duration, which is explaining for how long something is happening. So vixit, he lived multos annos. He lived for many years. That's not telling you when he lived. That's telling you the duration of his life, for how long vixit, the verb, happened. He lived for many years. So, kind of a miscellany, kind of a variegated chapter, again, as so many of these final chapters are. You've got one irregular spelling, the verb to go, and then you've got a couple new uses of endings or new ways to think about cases, many of which have no doubt come up already.